Hi. We're good. We're live now. So my name is Ryan Summers. You guys heard Brad speaking, I suppose, a moment ago, but my name is Ryan Summers. I teach the Advanced Audio Workstations course for Full Sail and the Recording Arts and Bachelor's of Science program. So I am more involved in the second year of the audio arts programs, whereas Brad is involved more in the first year of the programs, teaching the Audio Workstations course, which gets into more of the fundamental Pro Tools steps and procedures there. So today we are here to discuss Pro Tools certification. And Pro Tools certification affects everyone in audio arts, and it is an opportunity that everyone has, starting in the very early stages. And so it's an opportunity that we really want everyone to be able to take full advantage of as much as possible. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to give a really good, I think, overview, just a broad overview of what the certification process is. And we're going to start with a little bit of the history of how Full Sail is involved with AVID to begin with, and just talk about it from that perspective, because Full Sail has been, as one of the earlier production programs academically, has been involved in Pro Tools software since before AVID ever started a certification program. And we have been doing this kind of tutorial teaching, academic teaching of Pro Tools software very specifically, very technically, for over 20 years now, as long as I can remember. So I've been here since 2000, and in 2000 we were teaching Pro Tools, I think, version 4 at that time when I first started here as a staff member of the university. So just going to give you a little bit of a history and a little bit of a background on the certification process and just AVID's relationship with Full Sail specifically. So as we get into the topic of certification today, I just want to give you a look at AVID in general, that Pro Tools is not just the only certification that AVID provides. AVID provides several different certifications that are available. You can see these on AVID's website, so I highly encourage you from this point forward, wherever you are in the curriculum, that you are going to AVID's website and just looking at the certification offerings they have, constantly being in tune with your AVID account, looking at the most recent Pro Tools updates. There's a lot of really good information you can find on the AVID account online. On this screenshot here, I have a screenshot up for you of the AVID certification offering, which includes Pro Tools software. It includes video programs, some other programs like Media Composer, Sibelius. And they also have hardware certifications as well. You'll see certification options for S6 software, for live venue and S6L certifications. So AVID has a lot to offer in the world of certifications as far as people showing a really good grounded understanding in the software features, a really good understanding of how to use specific kinds of hardware in live or in studio production. And they want to set a precedent for the industry, that is, people coming out of whether institutions or out of their specific certification programs and being very knowledgeable about what their software and hardware offerings are, and knowing really how to use them in production environments. So AVID is a company like no other that is committed to this kind of idea, and this is why we take certification so seriously, because AVID takes it seriously, and because Pro Tools software is one of the most sought after programs for studio production, for live recording and live production, for audio post-production, for music production, actually creating music, MIDI production. They cover all of that, and it's a wide range of really skill sets that they are trying to foster and release people with the skills for. So anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't have a whole bunch to add. I just, I think that, I guess I'll emphasize this as much as I possibly can, and just how valuable it is to have the ability to be involved in the certification program, as part of the audio production bachelor's, because if someone was to go out on their own and try to obtain the certification on their own, they could do that, but it's a very costly process, and there's just a lot of things involved in trying to do that. So to have that, within the Full Sail umbrella and as part of the curriculum, with some criteria that are in place that we'll get into, it's just an extremely valuable opportunity. And so the fact that anybody that's in the town hall right now is getting, an early understanding of what is available in terms of this certification and how far you can really take it. It's a really, really great program, and there's a lot of benefits to it. So if you're tuned in right now, I think by the end of it, you'll really be convinced of the advantage of being in the know about this.
Yeah, and the other thing that you'll actually notice on AVID's website is that they have a very specific listing for two sets of individuals. One is called an AVID Learning Provider or an AVID Learning Partner. So Full Sail University is an AVID Learning Partner that you can find on a certification search on AVID's website. And those of us who teach Pro Tools software specifically are called AVID Certified Instructors or ACIs. And so our learning partner is Full Sail University, but Full Sail does, because we've been doing this kind of education for much longer than any other pro school that was teaching certification, because we've been doing it before certification came around, our process for certification is different than any other pro school that you would go to also. When you look at Full Sail's relationship with AVID, Full Sail has on campus, I actually have some numbers here. I don't even know how accurate the numbers are because they go up constantly, but just in talking through the audio arts facilities that are on campus, we have over 120 Pro Tools stations, Pro Tools specific stations on campus. That includes Brad's Lab Rooms, the Audio Workstations course, which is teaching Pro Tools, my course, which is teaching Advanced Pro Tools systems and Pro Tools HDX systems. We actually have over 80 of those systems on campus are HDX. And so Full Sail is really a central position for AVID hardware anywhere in the world. We have the most AVID content of anywhere in the world. And so we take our relationship very seriously, but our approach to certification is a little bit different. You're going to get Pro Tools training and production training in both of our courses and several other of your instructors' courses, but specifically getting into the Pro Tools side of things, we're going to cover Pro Tools along the way, but we just basically give you the certification books with our courses that you can look at as a side referendum as you're going through the course content. And because of that, certification, as Brad said, there's a huge cost saving in that as well, which we'll talk about, which is that because that material is provided on the side, it's basically incorporated into your course cost, and you don't pay anything extra for Pro Tools certification at all. So the two courses that are directly involved with Pro Tools certification and audio production are Brad's course for audio workstations, and then you guys will also meet, if you haven't already, Tom Hughes, who is teaching the Advanced Audio Editing Techniques course, which is happening in the second year of the online audio production program. So to be clear there, first year students are able to go for what we call Pro Tools 100 and 110, 101 and 110 certification, while second year students are able to go further into 201 and 210 level, what we refer to as operator certification, as part of that process for the bachelor's program specifically. So when you have gone through the workstations course, and Brad, I'll let you speak about this a little bit. When you've gone through the workstations course specifically, you are required to become eligible based off of a grade. It's not just available to everyone. And I'll let you kind of discuss that process and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so the way that it works is you come into Audio Workstations, and within the first week, you have access to those Pro Tools certification books. You have access to the 101 and the 110 certification books. And so then, you complete all your assignments in the course, and then at the end of the course, we look at your grade average, and we say, okay, well, if you get an 85 or higher, and I'm just simplifying it for right now, but you get an 85 or higher in the class, and then you would be eligible to take the Pro Tools certification test. So once you're eligible to take the test, you will receive an email that will tell you you can access this test inside your AVID account. I guess maybe as a little bit of a sidebar, I would never encourage anyone to just go in there and just click the button and start taking the test, because make no mistake about it, these aren't just a simple, I'll guess the answer kind of test. It really does take some work and some real effort to put the time in that you need to take to study for these tests, because they're not open book tests, they're not open note tests, they're not web browsing tests at all. You really need to know the information, and so you go in there and chapter by chapter, and the way that I recommend it, which I think works well in any situation, so it might seem really basic, but again, rounding some numbers around, let's say that the 101 level book or the 101 book is 300 pages. Well, you could read for, say, 10 or 15 minutes and slowly and methodically read, not just read it like a novel, but read and take some notes and see how long it takes you to read, say, 10 or 15 pages. And then you could, extrapolate out to figure out how long it was going to take you to read the full book. But then there's questions at the end of all the chapters. You sit down, physically write out. I mean, I know a lot of people like to type, but writing creates thinking. So I say physically write out the answers to the questions and spend the time taking the test. To say that is to say, once you pass the 101 test, then you could move on to the 110 next. And there's some timelines that we like to have you complete those tests within, but it's not that you have to finish everything within a week of getting your email or something like that. But it's, it's a tiered system. The criteria is the 85 in the class. Then the next step is to take the 101, pass the 101, then you can move on to the 110, and then you move forward, and then when you get into Tom Hughes' class, that's when you would be eligible for the 201 and the 210. So that's the basic structure of how it would work as you move through the different levels of testing.
Yeah, and we get questions about what students can do to prepare for that level of testing too. And there are a lot of online websites that are quiz sites and things like that, where people will post things every once in a while. Those are actually kind of dangerous to consult, because if you are going for the most recent version of Pro Tools certification, which all of you will be, then there's always this kind of throwback material that ends up in a lot of online locations and forums, and people take screenshots of things. It's really best to stay locked into the books specifically, because that content can really throw people off too, And there's a difference. Anytime we talk about testing, you really, any level of Pro Tools knowledge and understanding, it's like you can go into a test and you can say, well, I know how to use the tools in Pro Tools, I know how to create tracks, I know how to record audio, and you can go through some basic fundamental steps that you know really easily. But all of the test questions are not like that. So especially the first couple of versions of the test, you have combinations of questions that are very super simple, that anyone could probably answer, whether they even really know Pro Tools that well or not. And then you're going to come into the questions that are very software specific, and there's a lot of that mixture that's in there. When you take Brad's course, when you take any of these Pro Tools related courses that are certification related, this is the kind of email that you'll get. So if you were to finish Brad's course and receive an 85 or better, as he mentioned, in your overall GPA or a final project score at that time, this is the kind of email that you would get. And just so you understand kind of the layout of what we send you, one of the things that's in here is a link to the Pro Tools page on Full Sail 1. So I highly encourage all of you that are watching to make sure you have a bookmarked link to our Pro Tools page on Full Sail 1, and you'll be able to find us there. That's where you'll find any updated information about Pro Tools, specifically Pro Tools installs, and Pro Tools certification. If anything changes or there's any updates or anything, you'll see some details in the About section of the Pro Tools page there as well. So we also give you just a couple bullet points about just what to look out for while you're doing it. And Brad, this is kind of an example of what my email looks like, and Brad's probably has some specific things about communicating with him to enable things like that for an online student.
The one thing, and this is, for most of you just seeing this now, this is further down the road, but one of the important things to remember, just kind of as a heads up, is that in the subject line of the email will be listed the month of your course. So if we're in 2002 right now, when you get that email, you'll see in there it'll say AWKO 2002. When you finish the 101 test and you want to take the 110, you'll respond back to that email. That email will come to me, and then you could, if you're responding back to that email using the same subject line, I'll see the month of your course in there. But there's just a bullet point in there that says, make sure you reference the month of your course. And that does get overlooked from time to time. And I'm always willing to work back and forth to figure out the month that you are in, but it's just an easy way to expedite the process to use that reference, that bullet point reference in there about making sure you're referencing the month that you're taking the course. The other bullet point in there, and I know I've already kind of said it, but I really want to emphasize the point literally, is about making sure that you are studying for the test, because that's very much indicated in there that we want you to do well on the test. We want you to be able to earn your certification, but there's a cap to how many times you can take the test. So you just want to make sure that you're ready and you're prepared for that test, because if you don't do well the first time, you can get some indicators that tell you where your weak spots are, but you don't want to just not take it seriously and then wind up having to do, which Ryan will talk about, having to do this paid attempt. So those would probably be the two biggest bullet points within that email, of just making sure you're paying attention to the month that you were taking AWK, along with really putting in the study time that's needed to do, not only do well on the test, but it's also to retain the information so that the certification isn't just something that you did one time and you pulled it off, but it actually, you're absorbing the material and it's becoming a part of your process as you're working with the software. Because if you go through the testing and you study the books and really use those books to better yourself in the software, what you'll see is a change in the way that you approach the software. It won't be just, oh yeah, I took this test and I know this shortcut, and yeah, that's right, Pro Tools has this number of inputs and this number of outputs for this version of software. But you'll actually see how it kind of shapes and crafts, if you will, your approach to the software. So, but those would be the two bullet points that I would.
Yeah, you don't want to think of certification as something that it's something I have to do to get a piece of paper. It's something that you have tangible benefits from definitely doing, and you see your production and your workflow change, and you start to see a deeper level of production that's possible. I know Pro Tools software, when you look at it, you create a new session, a new project, and you look at it, it looks very simple and very plain. It's not until you start creating tracks and start working with media and things where all these sub-menus and all these different contextual menus come into play, and the depth of the software and what's possible just really comes to light. And sometimes, even if we don't cover those details, a specific detail in a course, you'll read through the book and you'll be like, oh, I had no idea I could do something like that. And it just, there is a life-changing, tangible benefit to being that aware of specific software procedures also. Now, when Brad sends an email, when I send an email, you'll also see something like this, which is an auto-generated email from AVT server. So usually by the time that we put a list together and send an email out to the students, there is also an enrollment responsibility that we have to enroll you into an AVT class online. And as a result of that, you get an auto-generated message that tells you in your student email account specifically that you have been enrolled, and that you can work with your instructor, to take care of that certification process. So, but it is worth noting and stressing everything that we do in our courses that concerns you guys is very specific to your student email. It's not to a Gmail address or Yahoo or anything else that you may be using. And so always make sure you're checking your student email account for all of those details there. Okay, when you are set up to a Pro Tools class online, when you're enrolled in an AVT class, you'll actually see a new section pop up in your AVT account. To the lower right of this screenshot and in your AVT account, you can see there's a little training block there. And that training block will have a handful of different links on them. One of the links that you'll see in there as a student who's ready to take a test is a take exam link. And so that's how you actually go in, log in to take a test. So the steps specifically there, you have been confirmed for eligibility with a grade. You have been sent an email from the course director that explains to you your eligibility and that you made the cut there. You're sent another email that's auto-generated from AVT. And at that point, you will see a training area in your AVT account that gives you a take exam link option in there to take a test. Okay? There's a couple other links that will show up in there after you have taken a test too. So we'll also just point out a couple things there. You also have an edit certified listing in there. You have a view certificates link in there. And so what happens when you pass a test is you automatically are given a kind of certification profile that you can go in and fill out details about yourself, contact information about yourself, and then you become a searchable professional Pro Tools user, in essence, that people could go onto Avid's website and do a search for, and your name would be added to that list once you achieve that user certification. Specifically, once you achieve that operator certification, you become part of a searchable database as well of Pro Tools users in your area that you will see.
You know, if I just kind of daisy chain off of what Ryan's saying there, I'm just thinking in terms of this searchable database, right? So somebody could find you as a Pro Tools certified operator. At some point, you could be a certified operator. But you know, just kind of backing up a little bit and emphasizing it's that kind of the dual benefits of Pro Tools certification. One is, you know, as you go out into the field and somebody looks at you and says, you know, okay, well, you know, what's your skill set? How can you contribute to this production? You know, they could look at your resume or have this conversation with you, and you could say, you know, I'm a Pro Tools operator certified, and so that can be a very you know, interest-generating comment. You know, for somebody to say that they're Pro Tools certified, that would make them more likely to want to have you sit down and show them what you know. Or you bring you into a session or bring you into an environment where they have, you know, Pro Tools rigs like a studio or whatever, and then be able to sit down and demonstrate how much control you have over the software. So that's from, say, like the call it the employer side. But from your side, that internal side is, you know, you have the confidence to go out, you know, having done the, you know, curriculum of Full Sail in the first place, but also having the additional benefits of all this additional Pro Tools certification. You know, that's a real boon to your confidence to know, like, you know, I don't just know Pro Tools. You know, I know Pro Tools from a level of what all my instructors have expected from me, that all my instructors in Pro Tools were Pro Tools certified. And then not only that, you've taken similar certification to what the instructors have been through. So just your level of personal confidence of, you know Pro Tools, but you know you are speaking about Pro Tools in the proper terms and definitions and terminology. And it's just a real confidence booster. And it goes back to what Ryan and I were kind of going back and forth on, was that idea of you will see a change in the way that you approach the software. You'll see a change in your approach to the way you put sessions together or organize sessions, or just, you know, all these kind of myriad of things. So it's the dual benefits of the certification: being in a searchable database where people can find you, and then just, again, you having that extra level of confidence in yourself as a Pro Tools operator.
Yeah, and knowing not just one way to do something for maybe your own workflow, but understanding how other people have their own workflows as well. So if you're going into a studio environment, any particular environment that you want to be a part of with other people involved, how do they do it? What is the most efficient way to them that they have something already set up and a procedure for? So one of the interesting things about the way the questions are asked on Pro Tools certification tests is most of the questions on the tests are multiple choice tests or multiple choice questions or true and false questions. And so one of the styles of questions they will ask you is how many ways can you do a particular thing and which one is not a way to do it, you know? So for example, if you're creating a marker, you know, in Pro Tools, you can press the Enter key on a full-size keyboard that includes a numeric pad. You can also go up into the marker ruler and add one. You can also open a separate window and add from a list of what are called memory locations and markers there. There are multiple ways to do something like that, and they will throw one in there that is the incorrect choice. And so they don't just want you to know how to do one thing your way. They're going to require you to know how to do it several different ways based on how different workflows go, you know. So they'll ask those kinds of questions. If you guys are preparing for the test, you're looking for anything, especially in the books, that's in bold, anything that is in a menu location, just understanding menu navigation, where to go to find things. And those kinds of questions show up too. What is the quick key to do a certain thing? What menu is that thing under? And is that under several menus, you know? So you have things that you can right-click on a track and do. You also have a track menu. So there are multiple ways in some cases to do the same procedure. And Avid's going to require you to know all of them to pass that side of their software as you guys are going through that. Let's talk about what certification tests are not. They are not a production test. They are not really based on a single particular workflow or how to record, the best way to record a vocalist kind of a thing. They're really more specific to the software. So you're going to go into a certification test not really learning or training on production workflows as much as you're going through very specific software procedures for how to do a Pro Tools thing. So in that respect, it's a little disappointing to some people. It's not really about a production training course. It really is a very precise software training course, just about software procedures for the most part.
Well, and then just to throw in a comment there, and I 100% agree with what Ryan's saying, is students will say, well, you know, I thought they were going to test me on like doing all this kind of thing with routing or, you know, whatever, subgroups or this or that. And it's not. It's specific to, in general, shortcuts, workflow, terminology. Mm-hmm. But again, it's that kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? It's the growth. There's a growth out of that specificity and out of that exactness and maybe more like theory. That's like you're the co-creator in that. So here's this technical information. You're absorbing and studying this technical information, and then the growth is you start to operate the software differently. So that's just something to keep in mind, that while they are technical tests that are multiple choice and true and false, don't discount the fact that it's not going to benefit, or let me say this, don't discount the fact that it is going to benefit you, because it will. You've got to be in that process, and to maybe, you know, kind of, you know, keep putting straws on the horse's back here, just about going through and being ready for the tests. When you read, like Ryan mentioned about looking for things that are maybe in bold, or I'm not sure if he said it, but sometimes there's little highlights or light bulbs, like things that are like visual cues for you to focus in on. When you're studying for the tests, it's not a race, it's a marathon. And so that marathon can be 5 pages a day. That marathon could be 10 pages a day of studying and putting together cogent notes. And we're just working through. It's like if you're trying to learn guitar and you first learn your first pentatonic shape. If you've ever tried to learn guitar, it's like the first time you go through that, it's like, why am I doing this? But then all of a sudden you get the movement and the shape, and you start to hear this. Oh wait, I kind of heard Under the Boardwalk in that little movement there, you know. And so that's kind of what it is when you go through the Avid books. At first it's like, well, why do I care about this, and what is this? But if you just take the time and kind of build these cogent, what I would say like note maps, and then you get to the end of the chapter, and now you go through and you try to answer those questions. You go back, you reference your notes. If you can't find it in your notes, you go back into the book. But you don't try to do it all. You don't try to study for a test in 2 days. You know, there's a timeline that we'll explain to you when you get the emails of how we think you should approach these tests. But you just, you sip on the books, and you just work your way through the books. You don't try to chug. You just sip the book, and you go through each chapter, and you'll start to see how all the little pieces and parts and facts and, you know, maneuvers and shortcuts start to kind of build and take shape on their own.
Yeah, if you were to print the certification books out in paper, you know, they would be about this high, you know, literally. So you guys receive everything as everyone does. You receive them in PDF form. And so as you are going through the course, as you come back through that material, you're going to recognize a lot of it. Make sure you take your time kind of scrolling through sections that are new to you or something that you feel like you could get a little extra practice in. And practice is everything. So just trying to memorize book, you know, certification book vernacular is one thing. Actually going into Pro Tools and practicing things, trying them out, that's how you're going to remember those things and incorporate them into what you do.
Yeah, and just real quick, is in the books, along with the study, you know, more theoretical types of concepts, is there's also lessons in there. So you can go and get make a Pro Tools session and go through the steps of what they're explaining in the books, and then you start to, you know, put kind of theory into practice. And then again, it's that kind of co-creator growth thing where once you do it once in a session, now all of a sudden you can go there and you can go, oh wait, I got this idea. What if I did this and I used it this way, and instead of putting those clips at these time positions, what if I just moved those time positions and did it my way? You know, you're just kind of open to that idea of I don't need to do this in one day. I don't need to do this in 5 days. I can take 2 or 3 weeks and work my way through this, and work through those additional lessons that are interspersed with the technical material.
So let's look at the test details here, just so you guys understand what to expect. There is a 101 and a 110 test for the user certification level, and those are what you're eligible for, what you qualify for after taking the workstations, the audio workstations course in that first year. The 201 test I also kind of group in here as a set-apart test, but that's available to second year students, where you start to get into the operator level of certification there. For each test, you're allowed to take a test 2 times for free. A third attempt will prompt a credit card payment of $30 through Avid's account, through your Avid account online, as you set up to take that test. They're automatically going to prompt you for that. We have nothing to do with Avid's charges or account charges or anything like that. It's just all handled through their site. Our agreement with Avid as a university is that a student is cut off from certification after 3 attempts. So you are allowed to take a single test up to 3 times, and you can take the 110 up to 3 times, the 201 up to 3 times. But after that 3rd time, you will be cut off from taking certification. You must also complete any certification tests before you graduate from the bachelor's program as a bachelor's student, for example, going through 200 level operator certification there. So the 210 music and the 210 post tests are specifically the operator level certification. So user certification is really for the first year students going through those courses. Operator level certification is through the 2nd year there. You will be charged for 210 level tests, especially on a 3rd attempt, also going through those as well. But there's definitely a certain value to doing this as part of your curriculum, online and on campus as online students, doing this as part of your curriculum. All of this is free, basically your process going through this, if you just take the time, invest the time in to do it. When you are certified, when you complete a user or an operator certification, this is an example of what that certificate looks like. So I've got a little sample writing on top of this, but you guys can see it's basically a specific logoed certificate that has your name on it. It has specifically what you're certified in, and it has a date and a signature on the bottom for essentially who that testing instructor would be. And that's an example of what that certificate is. So again, in your Avid account, you click on these certificates, and you'll see this kind of PDF view of your certificates. That makes them printable if you want to print them out. It makes them easy to attach if you're applying for a position, for example, somewhere, being able to attach those things in extra document uploads, your resume, certification updates, those kinds of things, okay? So I think we have a couple questions along the way as well, and so I wanted to give you guys kind of a general overview, a broad overview of the certification process and what to expect. And I know we have some questions coming from students online, so let's go ahead and hear from you guys.
All right, so we have DJ Prime Creator, who is asking what happens if we don't qualify with a passing grade? They have an 85 in the class.
That's a great question, Prime Creator. It is essentially up to the student that once you complete a degree, you actually, this is a side benefit, I don't know how many of you know this about Full Sail, but after you complete a degree, associate's or bachelor's, you're allowed to come back and audit a course for free again. You can come back and take a course again. Those are the rules per our agreement with Avid, is that if you are now eligible to do it, or if you even pass a test for a 3rd attempt, if you want to come back and take certification again, you would have to complete the program. You can come back and audit the course, especially as an online student. That's a pretty cool advantage. You're already kind of into your work life and everything. You can audit the course online again. You have to take all of the assignments again because it is for a grade, so you can't skip out on anything. But you can become eligible again, completing the content and coming into the course a 2nd time. So that was a great question, actually. It happens quite a bit, but that's actually an extra incentive for online students. That's an incentive really for you not to put it off, if you can certainly fit it into your schedule, but the opportunity that you guys have to audit online courses and come back and try them again anyway is awesome. certification certainly plays into that a little bit. Okay, so we just had the one question there. So just want to emphasize a couple things here about the value of this to the students. Full Sail students are granted the value of a certification course for free just by virtue of taking Pro Tools related courses. And so I'm going to show you, for example, what that course breakout looks like on another pro school online and what that comparison is. But the second thing is this does establish with you, as Brad was saying earlier, a little bit of industry cred. Okay? There are students who go out and they want to find positions in studios. They want to work with certain groups, whatever that production level is. And they are looking to get involved, and some employers will only accept a Pro Tools position, a person to fill that if they are Pro Tools certified. Everyone would tell you that right off the bat, we all want to work with people that are personable, that have a positive attitude, that are easy to get along with. And that is rule number one. But there are some employers that will not even entertain a position hire without a Pro Tools certification in their list there. So just something to consider there. I have in here those who have been certified. They understand the process that it went through. They took the tests. They know how hard those tests can be sometimes, how specific and how precise. And so anyone who has been certified understands when they see another certified user the work that they would have had to put in to be certified to get to that same level. So having certification is not just having a piece of paper. It is legitimately saying, I had to know all of these details about the software, whether I wanted to or not. And because of that, it makes me more widely available in a number of different workflows and different people groups. So you have some instant industry cred there. And I want to give you guys an example. I have actually 3 students. I couldn't remember who the third one was, but just in the last year, I have been in contact with 3 students who went out and took paid internships in studios, and this is just 2 examples that I pulled. These are both in New York City. I have a student who had graduated and they went to work at Dubway Studios in New York City, and another student who went to work at Quad Studios in New York City. If you guys look these up and look up some of the clients there, the people that are using these studios, they're really nice studios, and they would only accept students who were not students, but Pro Tools operators, Pro Tools users who were Pro Tools certified specifically. This is 2 of the 3. So the third one I'm not sure about, but both of these individuals who ended up at these studios specifically were Pro Tools certified and were able to get a position there, which was pretty neat for them and from their perspective. And I want to finish up here with just a look at this is a screenshot of another online pro school and their course offering. So this is pretty typical of all the pro schools that are not a specific university that you would take certification from, just like this. But you can see this is just a 101 certification course list. So what you can see here is that they have scheduled test times for different locations, and the cost of those tests, just for a 101 test course, is $1,300 for this test. That's not even a user certification. That's just a 100 level certification, and it's the same cost to go for a 110 certification level as well. So you're talking about a pro school cost of over $2,500 just to be user certified.
For the first 2 tests. For
the first 2. And with your Full Sail, just access that you have with audio workstations alone, that's a free test opportunity that you have to you. Same thing for second-year students going into advanced audio editing techniques. 200 level tests, the same cost. You're talking about a total value of $4,000 to $5,000 in certification course costs that is free to you just because you're a student here. That's insane, the value of that, right? So just the opportunity to partner these things with your resume, to consider the weight of these things. As Brad was saying earlier, just getting involved with people, going into interviews, knowing that you have put the time in and invested that time is a very powerful thing. So our goals for you, and maybe hopefully your goals for yourself, get free certifications. Take the opportunity to get that experience and to go through that process and get the absolute most value out of the process that you absolutely can. Really good, easy resume material to have there. It also shows potential employers whether they are directly involved in audio studios or not, whether your career path takes a different direction. it also shows them that you are someone who will put the effort in and the time in to, to grow yourself and whatever your skill set is. So it's really important to accept and take on free opportunities for skilled growth, really in any aspect of your life. I highly encourage you guys to do that. Secondly, make sure you take each attempt seriously. So again, with each test, you do only get up to 3 attempts. You want to take that first attempt seriously and not just go through the test as an opportunity to see what it might look like for when you decide to study for a second attempt. So we see people fall into that trap every once in a while. Make sure that you are taking the time to really review and to prepare yourself for that first attempt. And as you saw on one of the earlier slides, you have to complete 40 out of 50 questions correctly to pass. And so you don't want to be that person who the second time around answers 38 questions correctly because the second time around you took it seriously, and then you have to pay for a third attempt to get over that 40 mark. So make sure you're investing that time up front when you guys are going through that.
And that's why it's, just to kind of touch back on what you're saying about the cost, if you looked at, that previous slide and what it would cost just to take the 101 or just take the 110, let's just call it $1,500, right? I mean, that would be just to take the classes on top of any other expenses to get to the testing facility, or if you had to stay overnight for several days or whatever. So just as you move through, say, my class, audio workstations, and you get ready to take that first test, you got to just stop and pause for a second and think like, okay, how seriously would I take this if I forked out $1,500 to take this test? Because that is, just how you got to kind of think of it. You have to think of it as like, how much time would I put in if I had to put in the $1,500 and pay that out of my pocket? You I think you'll take it a little bit more seriously if you do that. And I think maybe I've emphasized my concern about just taking these tests as seriously as possible and just giving yourself that ample time to study. And that's the other advantage is you can spread out that time to absorb the material before you take the test a lot more within the confines of how you're enrolled at Full Sail. But definitely keep that consideration of the full cost of taking all these tests could be close to $5,000. And it's quite a value, it's quite a value add is how I would say that.
Yeah, the last point on here is mark it on your calendar. Commit to it, set aside a specific time to do it, because it is one of those things. You guys are in a very consistent, very grinding schedule that you can get into in taking your classes here. And so you're going to have assignments that are due every day. We all as instructors, you all as students, we all understand that. Put it on your calendar. Set a time that you're specifically going to set aside an hour. I'm going to set aside an hour here to go through the 100, the 10 level, the 101 level book, the 110 level book, whatever book you're up to. Set the time aside, just like it's any other homework assignment, to make sure that you don't put it off and get through it. Because Brad's course, I think, online. Which month are you online in that program?
We would be month 6.
Yeah. So you could very easily just put off the next 6 months and say, I'll find time, and then it's 5 or 6 months later. And the thing about taking it at the end of a degree program is you may not remember the details of something that you learned, 5 or 6 months ago, too, if you're jumping around in different programs and going through other course content. So you want to set and commit time to do it, take advantage of the opportunity, that it is, and do it soon. Don't put those things off as you're doing that, okay? All right. So really appreciate you guys jumping in and checking us out today. You will find the audio production town hall meetings available to you every month. Hope you get to come in here and interact with us live. So we had a couple questions today, but definitely encourage as many of you to get involved as possible. And we look forward to getting into more topics with you and just sharing other aspects of skills and content creation, gear, all those things we plan to do in the future. So thank you for joining us both today, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Have a great day.